And honestly, one of my dreams is that everybody in the whole world goes through a 200-hour yoga teacher training program. If not for the Sangha, for a time to be with like-minded individuals who are all on a journey towards reaching their fullest potential.
Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. I hope you are having a great day as you listen to this week's episode of my podcast. I want to keep it quick, this intro, but I do want to say that I have exciting news to share. I am moving to Peru for 4 months. I got hired to teach a yoga teacher training program in Peru for 4 months. So I will be moving there at end of this week. I am very, very excited and grateful to have this opportunity to experience living in Peru and teach a teacher training. My goal in my yoga teaching career is to move towards teacher training, working and doing and teaching teacher training. So I feel like this is a right step towards my dream and my goal. I did wrap up assisting my teacher's 200-hour teacher training, Annie Carpenter's Smart Flow 200-hour teacher training in Mexico. So I'm happy to kind of close that chapter and get ready to move to Peru at the end of this week. And I'm sure I will continue to keep you updated on my journey as a full-time yoga teacher, this time living in Peru on this podcast. I got to see a lot of my favorite people this weekend for my little farewell potluck I had at the park. So right now, as I record this, my heart is very, very full and so happy that I got to see a lot of my favorite humans in Long Beach. So before we get started with this week's episode, I want to mention that my virtual mentorship program application closes at end of April. I have been hosting and teaching, facilitating mentorship program for yoga teachers for about 3 years now. And while I am in Peru, I am continuing to offer my mentorship program, but this time it will be completely virtual. We will meet about twice per month virtually. There'll be continuing education, webinars, workshops, as well as practice teaching sessions, Q&A session, and monthly yoga philosophy discussions. All the juicy, good stuff is included in this mentorship program. So if you are looking to further your education, further your knowledge and skills about yoga and teaching yoga, this program is for you. I just love the community of this mentorship program, and I hope you can join this community where we can support each other, encourage each other, inspire each other to grow and to be the best yoga teacher that we can be and the best yoga student that we can be. So my mentorship programs information and the link to all the information will be on the show notes. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and let me know. So let's talk about this week's episode. I was privileged enough to interview Ashley this week. And me and Ashley never really met in person, but I have heard about Ashley from so many different yoga teachers. I have interviewed Stephanie on my second interview of this podcast, who actually works with Ashley and teach yoga teacher training at Orange Coast College. I also have interviewed Rick, who has started a 200-hour teacher training program at Long Beach Community College, and both of them have mentioned Ashley because Ashley is the one who kind of spearheaded starting a 200-hour teacher training program at Community College in Southern California. So Ashley is a certified yoga therapist, registered yoga teacher, yoga educator, and board certified health and wellness coach who has been committed to teaching the power of yoga since 2011. Ashley worked as a yoga therapist for 6 years in an integrative health setting where she empowered patients to use the tools and techniques of yoga to decrease their chronic pain symptoms. Since 2014, she has taught at Orange Coast College, OCC, where she created the 200-hour yoga instructor training program. And in 2022, Ashley was hired as a seasonal fitness instructor at the world-famous resort Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Mexico, where she teaches a variety of classes from chanting to aerial yoga and from ballet to meditation. In 2023, Ashley began teaching for the Health and Wellness program at Saddleback College, providing lectures and health and wellness classes to the active aging population in South Orange County. What I really loved about the conversation I had with Ashley is that her enthusiasm, she loves what she does, and just by being in her presence, you can really tell that she is very passionate about it, and she really wants to share the magic of yoga to her community. And I love that she, pursued all this education in yoga therapy and master's in yoga studies and her love of continuing education, but she also really created opportunity for herself, and she was not afraid to knock on doors, to propose different work opportunity. Even if it didn't exist, she was willing to knock on doors and create an opportunity and a position for her. And I really love her energy about just doing it, creating opportunity, even if it may look like it's not there. She is just a go-getter, and I love that. So I hope you can get her energy from this interview, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome, Ashley, for coming to join me on the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm so happy that you can make time to chat with me today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Reika. Thank you for inviting me. This is truly a special occasion, and I'm excited to see where our conversation goes today.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited. I have heard your name, about your program from so many different people, students of yoga and teachers of yoga, and I'm just so grateful that I get to actually speak to you. And I have interviewed a couple people already, Stephanie that you work with, as well as Rick, who knows you from wanting to start a program at LBCC. So I'm just excited that, so many people have kind of pointed the direction towards you for me. So I get to now actually talk to you. So I'm very excited about that.
Yay.
So maybe tell the listener, when did you first started practicing yoga?
I would have to say, Reika, that some type of yoga and focused movement was introduced to me when I was very young. So I remember being, maybe somewhere around 6 or 7 years old and seeing my father actually practice shoulder stand, headstand, and plow every morning. And I didn't really know what he was doing. All I knew is that he was holding these postures for a very long time. And it was really cool to see that, it was something very captivating about it. And then as I got a little bit older, somewhere around maybe 9 or 10, 11, I started to understand that my mom was a very high level step aerobics instructor. Mm-hmm. And so she would do aerobics. She would teach it to the Mattel toy company, folks that worked there. And so my sister and we would be kind of, dragged to these big corporations. And my mom would teach aerobics to hundreds of people while my sister and I kind of played around to the side. But music was a big part of that. And seeing my mom kind of on a stage teaching, I found that type of focused movement and interaction with the crowd, or just this really intense inward kind of expression of concentration and focus, was shown to be demonstrated to me at a very young age. And so that didn't come into my life at all really until I was, I think 11 years old was the first time I took a dance class. And so I got into ballet and tap and jazz, and that became the most important part of my life for about 20 years. So we're talking, I was probably somewhere around 30, 32, 33 years old when I first took my first yoga class, and where it really made an impact on me. I had taken a yoga class at Orange Coast College, strangely enough, back in 2000, but it was called Yoga for Dancers. And I remember the instructor being so great, but I don't really remember any aspect of yoga that was more than just kind of dancing and experimenting with my body. But when I came to the yoga studio, Core Power Yoga, back in 2010, I felt like my heart was exploding when I took my first yoga class. And that experience was so profound for me because it taught me that it was really about the connection between the teacher and the student. That's what made me want to keep coming back. I felt safe and supported and cared for and seen and encouraged at a time in my life, I think, when I really needed that. And from that is where just everything kind of took off for me there.
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say that it's so fascinating that you saw your dad practicing shoulder stand at such a young age. And I'm sure back in that time, like yoga wasn't very popular as it is now. So how did he knew about yoga and practicing shoulder stand? What was his yoga experience like?
Yeah, my parents actually grew up in Missouri, and then they went to school in North Carolina, and then they moved to New York. And I think at that time, yoga, meditation was really kind of blooming during that time in the 1970s. And my parents were vegetarians. I was raised a vegetarian for 19 years. And so there were some books, there were some television shows, there were a little bit of that influence, with my family and especially in that area of the country. So, and they never talked to me about that at all, but it was just our lifestyle, kind of the way that we would, live with each other, interact with each other. It just was the norm.
I love that. My parents are both Buddhist, and although they weren't practicing yoga asana, it was very normal in our household to have like a little altar. And I would always see my dad sitting cross-legged and meditating with his mala beads. And I definitely do think, even though I didn't see asana practice as a young child, that had an impact on me and how I was drawn to yoga later in life. So I'm sure it had an impact on you too.
Yeah, thank you. I don't really reflect on that, but I think about that image in my mind on the second floor of our home and seeing my dad out by our pool, doing all these wonderful, very challenging postures and that having a big influence on me. So it's interesting to kind of talk about that, say that out loud, and especially with the influence of my mom and how focused she was also on fitness and wellness and connection, that, maybe those were just all those little seeds that needed to be planted for me to be where I am today.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you said you got into Core Power, started taking classes at Core Power around your early 30s. So can you maybe share with us, what were you doing before? What was your job? What was your life like before you kind of encountered yoga during that time?
Yeah, so right after high school, or I guess I would say that, like I said before, that was the most important part of my life. My fundamental friends were dancers. And so we created this kind of community of dancing and practicing and performing. And it was incredibly just, it was just the most important thing to me in my whole life. So when I came into high school, I started getting into musical theater. And so I learned how to sing, and then I learned how to act. And then once I graduated from high school, I was supposed to go to USC, University of Southern California, in the fall. And at the last minute, someone had asked me to actually be a dancer in a summer stock production of Oklahoma in West Virginia. And I was so excited. It was like a huge professional gig. And so I went out there and started to meet all of these actors who were from New York and had to audition to get this part. And because of someone that I knew, I was able just to kind of get in without having to audition at all. And so I started to get the information of, you don't have to go to school in order to be an actor. You just need to go to an acting school. So unfortunately, I went to USC and I lasted one semester because I was so, influenced by all of those people that I met in that whole summer of being with these incredible performers and thinking, well, I know best. I don't need to go to school. So then I went to a place called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And this, at the time, it was in Los Angeles. It was a 2-year conservatory where I learned, Shakespeare and more performing. And so it was so incredible. So I was there. And during that time, I met a girl, and she was a beautiful actress, and she was from Milan, from Italy. And we developed a great friendship. And she said to me one day when I was 19 years old, you should come to Italy. So I said, okay. It's just what you do when you're 19. And I lived there off and on for 10 years. Wow. And so I danced. I was a go-go dancer. I danced at clubs. I taught English to a really wonderful family that I still keep in touch with now. I worked at a bar. I worked at a restaurant. I had just a wonderful amount of friends, lived in different places in Milan, but always in Milan. And then basically I was 30 years old and my parents are like, what are you doing with your life? And they said, just please get your degree. Just please get your degree. And I was like, okay. So I came back to California, and with the help of my family, I got into UC Berkeley, I got into UC Irvine, UCLA, and I decided to go to UC Irvine. Mm. And I, of course, wanted to major in film and media studies, and I also majored in European studies, so I double majored. So I'm a 30-year-old student going back to school, and loving the fact that I get a chance to take advantage of all the cool things at UC Irvine. And I started to get into fitness and wellness activities at the Anteater Recreation Center, which is this like 250,000 square foot facility at UCI. I got a job there. And then through that, I started to practice Pilates. Mm. And because I was working there in marketing and membership, that I got a discount. But then I got a job at Cal State Long Beach, and I couldn't afford to have any type of private sessions with a Pilates instructor. And at Cal State Long Beach, I also was in marketing and membership, kind of doing almost the same thing that I did at UCI. And one day I thought, I've got to get into Pilates. I want to come back into that. How do I find that? I Googled Pilates, and the first thing that came up was Core Power Yoga Pilates class. I went in for my very first class, and that's when I fell in love with yoga.
Okay. And when you first taken a class at Core Power, was it love at first sight? Did you kind of fall in love with the practice from the first class ever? Or do you feel like it took a little bit for you to kind of slowly fall in love with yoga?
Coming from a dance background, it was interesting. When I turned 30, I started to feel very dizzy when I would turn. And I used to be able to, if you know anything about dance or anyone that's listening about dance, like I could turn on a dime. I could do pirouettes and fouettes and chaîné turns. And it was just, turning and turning and turning for days. And then sometime when I hit 30 years old, I went to a fair and I was on something called the Zipper, which is basically because I loved rides, fun fair rides and the turning upside down and all that good stuff, that I got so sick afterwards that I found out that I lost my way and I couldn't really dance anymore in the sense of I could, move my body, but I couldn't do the turns. And so when I went to that first core power yoga class, it was like I was moving like a dancer, but everything was so slow and focused, and the placement was very, very, again, similar to dance, but I didn't have to turn quickly, right? If I was going to turn, it was very slow. It took time for your head to turn to one side and then to the other. So it almost felt to me like it was this perfect evolution from who I was as a dancer into a yoga practitioner and student. So yeah, I guess it was kind of love at first sight because it felt so natural for me to move my body like this. And of course, I was glorified for having flexibility, hypermobility. And it wasn't until, probably a few months later, maybe a year later, when I started to realize that yoga was not just about asana, not just about the postures.
Yes, I love that. At what point in your practice, your yoga practice at Core Power, did you feel like I want to become a teacher?
Yeah. So I would say that my whole life, I have had certain people that have come into my life, and I'll call them angels. I'll call them mentors. I'll call them, sent from the divine, but people who I've really trusted, who have guided me. And I have always stepped in a direction of support. So I remember back in high school, I auditioned as a dancer to be in a performance of Brigadoon. And they were talking to me about, dancing. And then someone that I really respected said, if you can dance, you should sing. And you should take voice lessons. And it was like immediate. I was like, okay, if this person is telling me to do this, then I'm going to do this. And that's how I've really led my life, where, again, if there's somebody that I really respected and they have a conversation with me and they have some feedback for me, some guidance for me, then I'm stepping into that door and I might not even think about it. And that's what happened to me at Core Power Yoga. I had a mentor that she was a teacher that was so beloved. She's still beloved. Her name is Heather Peterson. In fact, I just texted her the other day saying, thank you again for being one of the most important people in my life. And she had a conversation with me in the hallway at Core Power Yoga in Huntington Beach at Bellaterra. And she said, you should be a yoga teacher. And I looked at her and I said, no. I don't even know if I really like, but I think it's the right thing for you. I see that for you. And within a day, I signed up. I didn't really question it. And again, that's kind of how, when I look back on my life, even from a young age, with that type of support and encouragement is when I thrive. It's just, okay, it's blind trust, blind faith. And I just know that is the right way. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know how. I don't know where I'm going to get the money. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I just move in that direction and it all seems to kind of work out.
Yeah. It seems like you were following your intuition.
Yeah. Or I don't even know if it's my intuition because there wasn't a lot of reflection, honestly, Reika. I didn't think like, should I do this? Is this the right thing for me? It was like really a guide sent to me. Really a guide sent to me.
Yeah. I love that. So you decided to do your 200 hours. Which 200-hour program did you decide, and what was your format of the 200?
Yeah. So at Core Power Yoga, it's Vinyasa Power Yoga, where you are moving breath to movement. And the breath really is the most important part. So there's music and there's encouragement and there's, challenging classes and there's, a lot of yoga philosophy that is weaved throughout the class. And that's what was really fundamental for me, especially as I continued to take on more trainings, was the important part of having a theme, the important part of connecting with your students and encouraging them and being specific about your encouragement, to create heart-to-heart connections, to spend time before class and get to know your students by name, and to also spend time after class and to ask how someone's doing and get to know them on a personal level. It really taught me so much about community, core power yoga. And I worked there at a time way back in the day where you had to come 30 minutes before, stay 30 minutes after. I mean, obviously at that point, I didn't care. I was so excited to just work there and teach. I mean, I was definitely all in. But then when I think about now in my role as teacher trainer for the students that come to Orange Coast College, I'm like, this is fundamental. It is so important to get to know your students that come in and out. This is how you create trust. And this is how you create a safe space for somebody to come in and receive what they need from the power of yoga.
Yeah. And how long was your 200 hours? And was it weekend format or was it 1 month intensive? What was the length of your teacher training?
I want to say it was somewhere between 12 and 14 weeks. And it was great. It was Saturday and Sundays, and then one day during the week. So it was very doable. And I was teaching at Cal State Long Beach at the same time. So again, it was very doable. I think it was like a Wednesday night from 7 to 10 and Saturday and Sunday all day. And it was a big group of us. I think we were like 30 or 40 students in the class. And we had a couple of main teacher trainers, and then we had some support teachers. And it's so cool. I went and got my nails done about 2 months ago, and I'm sitting down and I see this girl across from me, and I say, Dawn? And she's like, Ashley? And that was one of the teachers that supported me during my 200 hour, who, I just hold so near and dear to my heart. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was so cool. I live in Huntington Beach, California. It is a very small community. I really think Orange County in Southern California is very, very small community, especially in the yoga world and fitness and wellness. And so it was just really cool to have that experience with her. And again, I expressed my gratitude to her. And I just said, I have to let you know that I can still see her teaching and demonstrating and supporting and encouraging. And she used to leave us little notes, and encouraging us, like, you're doing great, keep it up. And that really, it just touched my heart. So I try to do that for my students too.
Yeah. I just interviewed somebody yesterday for the podcast, Callie, who actually also went to Core Power teacher training. And she also ended up becoming a teacher trainer at Core Power for quite some years before she left. But she also said the same thing. The community was the best thing. That was the most memorable part of her career in Core Power, was the community.
It really was. And, it's so cool. I met someone during my 200 hour, and her name is Andrea Henson. She is my yoga bestie. We clicked, we hit it off, and she is still one of the closest people to me in my life. And we're talking from 2011. And, I just texted her this morning. It is so cool how when you take the step of immersing yourself in a 200 hour, what comes out of that are things that you can't even imagine, And And honestly, one of my dreams is that everybody in the whole world goes through a 200-hour yoga teacher training program. If not for the Sangha, for a time to be with like-minded individuals who are all on a journey towards reaching their fullest potential. Be around these people for 14 weeks, or in my case at Orange Coast College, for 2 full semesters, 10 hours a week. You will feel like you've never felt before. And in fact, I had a student a few years ago, and it was probably like the 4th week of class. And he looked around to the 35 people that were in the training and said, I just have to let you all know that I've never felt this close to 35 people in my whole life. And when we are struggling so much with social anxiety and isolation and fear about the present and the future, having a group of people around you for a long period of time, when you're talking about positive things, when you're moving your body, when you're breathing intentionally, when you're talking about yoga philosophy and how to take what you've learned and apply it to your real life, and when you hear the person next to you encouraging you and you're getting a hug, I mean, it is just the best thing. And we all need that. We all need that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. The community and the Sangha that you built during that 200-hour teacher training it's priceless for sure.
It is. And I paid a lot of money for my 200-hour back in the day. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much it is now, but I spent, I think, $3,500. And that's one of the reasons, why I wanted to make the training at Orange Coast College affordable, because just like Callie, I became a lead teacher also for Core Power Yoga. And when I would talk to students, they were like, Ashley, I can't afford that. Like, there's no way, no matter how much I love yoga, I cannot afford it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this program at Orange Coast College, because you can take this program for free. Mm-hmm. And if you do not qualify for financial aid, then it's somewhere around $700. And you don't even have to pay all of that all up front, right? You can pay the $350 in the fall and the $350 in the spring. And this program too, when you're at a community college, you are a student of the college. So you get all these wonderful resources like a food pantry. If you don't have food, you can go and get fruits and vegetables and protein and snacks and all of that. Mm-hmm. You get free mental health counseling, which is so important, and to be able to go in and talk to a doctor, about your mental health or physical health. That's also free. So it's really a dream that I was supported in such a profound way by my dean. His name is Dr. Michael Sutliff through Orange Coast College, who just encouraged me when I brought this to the table and I said, can I create something like this? And he said, do it. I was like, yes, that's awesome.
Yes, I think it's so amazing the work that you're doing at Orange Coast Community College. And I do want to get there, but I have some more questions for you about your journey before you get there. Sure. So I know you completed your 200 hours at Core Power, and you were working full-time at Cal State Long Beach while you were taking your 200 hours. Is that correct?
That's true. Yes.
Okay. So after you finished your 200-hour program, did you start teaching right away? Did you teach a couple times a week, or was it a little bit of break you took before you started teaching? So can you give me that transition period from after 200 to actually starting to teach?
Yeah. So at Core Power Yoga at the time, you went through your 200-hour. And then if you really wanted to be considered to be a teacher, you had to go through something called extensions. And I feel like it was 5 weeks or something, where you worked with a lead trainer in a smaller group, and you would explore theming and sequencing and just a little bit more intermediate aspects of the yoga practice. Once you completed that, then you could audition to become a teacher. And so luckily I auditioned and was able to work at the Irvine location at Core Power Yoga, as well as the Huntington Beach Bella Terra. And so again, at that time, I know things have changed, but you taught 30 classes for free. And I was so grateful for that, because I didn't want anyone to be paying me for what kind of teacher I was at the very beginning. So I taught all of those classes, and then they took me on as a teacher. And I taught, I want to say somewhere probably around 3 to 5 classes a week. I think I was on the schedule 3 times, but then I was one of those young teachers, and I kind of still am like that now, where if there was ever an opportunity to sub, I was the first one to immediately email them back. So I was doing my very best to get as much experience as possible, and to, teach and take classes, and just to feel more comfortable about what I was doing, so that I wasn't always, freaking out so much before I would teach a class, which, I always knew that the outcome was going to be okay, but gosh, the nerves were so intense, those first 30 classes. I mean, I probably had to go to the bathroom quite, right before I went to teach, just like, okay, you can do this, you can do this. It was just, it meant the world to me. It meant so much to me to be able to be a representative, of the yoga community. It just was very important to me to do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that beginning teacher life where we say yes to all the sub opportunities, I can definitely relate, just saying yes to a lot of the opportunity that is available. And I feel like almost every teacher that I interviewed for this podcast all said it's the same thing, where in the beginning we just say yes to all the sub opportunity, whether it's 6 a.m. or 8 p.m., doesn't matter, just say yes, yes. And that's how we really grow and really become more experienced and start to find our own voice and our own style of teaching. So I can definitely relate to that. So you were still working full time and teaching couple classes, permanent classes a week, plus taking on as many subbing as possible?
Yes. And that was happening for me definitely until 2015. But in the meantime, right after I graduated and started teaching at Core Power Yoga, it was probably July, and I was going through the bios of the teachers that worked at Core Power, because since I was able to be teaching there now, you could get a picture and then your name. And so if someone clicked on your name online, they could see who you were. And I was looking through, what other teachers were posting, and someone had said that they were in a program at Loyola Marymount University in a yoga therapy program. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. What's that? Because I had actually gotten into LMU when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the campuses that I went to take a look at and explore and see if it was a good fit. And I was going to major in acting going to LMU. And I decided not to go to LMU, went to USC instead for one semester. But I was really struck by how beautiful the campus was. I mean, it was bright and it was all shiny, and it was just really, really gorgeous. And so that's that little bio that I read. And I could not even tell you right now who that bio was about, but I did some research, and the research that I did, honestly, Reka, was not very much, but I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to enroll in this program. And guess who I'm going to call to do it with me? My yoga bestie from Core Power Yoga, Andrea Henson. Andrea, do you want to enroll in this program with me? We have to submit an application. Okay, sure. So, we're just yoga geeks, yoga nerds. Like, we just wanted to be teaching and learning and being with each other and more community. And so it was like, go, go, go.
you enrolled in a yoga therapy program at LMU at 2015?
No, 2011.
2011.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I graduated from Core Power Yoga in 2011,
Uh-huh.
and I got a job teaching there in 2011, and then in October I started the yoga therapy program at LMU.
Okay. So,
All in 2011. It was like guns blazing.
so you are just ready to keep going with your continuing education.
Yes.
Yes. And I know there are different levels of yoga therapy program at LMU. So what levels, how far did you go with your yoga therapy degree at LMU?
Oh, I went all the way. There was no stopping at level one. So yeah, the intention was to definitely complete the entire program. And honestly, I didn't even know what a yoga therapist would do. I didn't know what I had never been to a yoga therapist. And again, it's that. Yeah, and now upon reflection, what you had said before, that you listen to your intuition, definitely something was guiding me. I guess maybe at that time I didn't think about that word intuition and something greater inside of me drawing me and pushing me and sending me these, but yes, definitely. So moving in that direction I was just drawn to it. And I didn't think about it. I just embraced it. But I also didn't get too wrapped up in it, in the sense of there's a lot to learn. There's so much to learn. And I didn't freak out about the fact that I didn't know a lot. And a lot of the people that were there were much older than me. They were physical therapists, they were nurses, they already had their degrees, their masters, their PhDs. They'd been teaching yoga for 25, 35 years. And this is me, in like maybe 3 months of having taught, coming into this environment and just not being so hard on myself.
Yeah.
Not thinking, well, I've got to be as good as all of them. It was more so like, I'm just going to be in awe of all these amazing people around me. And I'm going to learn what I can, knowing that I have a full-time job and, other things going on. But there's something about this that I really like. And I love the people that are around me. And I love spending time with my yoga bestie. So let's keep this ball rolling and see what happens.
Amazing. I love that you were just, there was that inner knowing that you're following. And I remember hearing that there is, or maybe, I don't know if they changed their format since, but it's the 4 levels of yoga therapy training that you can go for. And for you, how long did it take to complete your level 4?
Yeah, so it will take 4 years.
Okay.
And I did it in 3 years.
Wow.
Because at the time, when I started my second year, I was thinking that maybe I would move out of California. My husband was looking for a full-time position working. He's a chemistry professor, and we just didn't know if there were going to be any opportunities for him in California. And so I was just like, I just don't know. So let's speed up this program and let me do levels 2 and 3 at the exact same time. And of course, who's by my side? My yoga bestie did the exact same thing as me. So I could, and the way that LMU worked at the time was the first level was on the first weekend of the month. The second level was the second weekend of the month. And the third level was the third weekend of the month. So I could do levels 2 and 3 at the same time. And so that was really easy. I mean, not easy, but easy to do it and to spend time, because it was only on the weekends. And then the 4th year was an internship. And that's when I worked at the Venice Family Clinic up in Venice, California, where I worked with an underserved population, a homeless population, folks that did not have insurance. And this clinic was an integrative clinic. And there was a doctor on staff, a lead doctor, but then there were also acupuncturists and somatic therapists and yoga therapists and physical therapists. And so we would be assigned a patient to work with. And that was absolutely incredible. That was so wonderful. I mean, I had my own little office. Of course, I had my supervisor that was nearby if I had any questions, but I wore a white coat and had a blood pressure monitor and would have these conversations with these lovely people who, did not have the resources. And so we had an hour to spend time with them and talk to them about how they were feeling and being able to assess them and give them a yoga practice that was, and when I say yoga practice, this is yoga with the big Y. So this is asana, pranayama, breathing techniques, meditation, lifestyle, ritual, gratitude practice, right? So all of that, depending on what their needs were. And then they would come back every week and we would talk about adding on or taking away, or, what got in the way of you being able to do your yoga practice, and how are you feeling? How is that different? So it was just an incredible opportunity.
That sounds incredible that you were able to bring yoga practice into that kind of setting. And I don't know, the yoga therapy program is something I'm definitely have thought about quite a bit. So it's so fascinating hearing from you. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I have interviewed quite a few people who either went through LMU or another yoga therapy program, or currently in yoga therapy program. So I think it's so fascinating to hear how yoga can be incorporated into such a different setting outside of yoga studio, because that's kind of where we commonly think about yoga, is at yoga studio. So I love that there's different way and path that yoga teachers can pursue and kind of make it their own. So for you, after you finished your program at LMU, what was the next step for you? Where did you go, or what did you do?
Yeah, so the Venice Family Clinic, that experience, that internship really empowered me with the tools to be able to pursue that direction. And during that time, there was another one of my faculty members who was supporting us at the Venice Family Clinic. Her name is Megan McCarver. And she was actually working as a yoga therapist in Santa Ana in an integrative setting. And it was through workers' compensation. And basically, she asked me to be her sub. So I came in and I was, again, introduced to another setting where patients would come in that were hurt on the job, and they would commit to a 6-week program where every day they worked with a physical therapist, a dietitian, a cognitive behavioral therapist. It was incredible. And that is what I ended up being a part of. I ended up going there, being able to work there full time. So I quit Cal State Long Beach in 2015. I started subbing for Megan in this integrative setting. And then I started knocking on doors to different locations around me that were very close to me, that would possibly be interested in a collaboration. And I met a chiropractor and I said, "Are you interested in possibly working with me where I can help your patients and I can teach small functional yoga therapy classes?" And he said, "Sure." And so I started to teach 10 hours a week at a chiropractor's office. I was subbing for Megan a little bit in the functional restoration program, this integrative health center. I was teaching at Core Power Yoga. I was, just kind of doing a little bit of everything until the integrative health center assumed me full time. And then I was able to work there. And also at the same time, I was working at UC Irvine and I was teaching classes there. So it was just a lot of little jobs, but very good paying jobs. I mean, I was making $100 an hour, working at the clinic and teaching the yoga therapy classes with the chiropractor. I was making $80 an hour working 50 minutes. So there were lots of really good high paying opportunities for me. And it was definitely because of the yoga therapy program, because, you think about your 200-hour, like an associate's degree, right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got your 300-hour, you're getting into your bachelor's, then, going up and up and up, your all that education is going to give you better opportunities, more high paying opportunities.
Yeah, I love hearing that story so much because a lot of a lot of teachers that I know who went and graduated from yoga therapy program, but actually not all of them graduated with level 4. So some of them, only to level 1 or only to level 2. But from the stories that I hear, it seems like they had a hard time finding a job as a yoga therapist, or finding enough private clients to kind of continue their path as a yoga therapist. And it also almost becomes kind of like a side thing they do, but not so much the main thing. But I love hearing your stories of you said you were knocking on doors, you created opportunity for yourself with a chiropractor, and you were subbing, and you were doing all these things, creative things, and also not waiting for invitation, but actually creating your own opportunity. And you said things were going well, like you were able to find a well-paid position compared to typical 200-hour graduates who work at a gym or something like that. So I love hearing that, and I admire that so much that you did that. And when you went to the chiropractor to kind of offer or say, hey, let's collaborate, was it chiropractor office was paying you the hourly rate, or did you have to kind of create a rate with the the client the chiropractor brought to you?
No, the chiropractor did everything for me. I said, this is the amount of money I'd like to be paid. I'd like to work 10 hours a week. These are the options of the time. And then he said, great. So he, and it was, I think that it's very important to be clear and direct and tell someone what you want. Mm-hmm. I learned in the yoga therapy program a technique. It's a yogic technique called bhavana. And it was by Robert Bernberg, who was one of my, foundational teachers, amazing person. And it's basically where you visualize the most positive, realistic, specific, and concrete future for yourself. What does it look like? Because if you can't understand where you want to go, then you won't get there. You've got to be so specific about it. What is the best thing that could possibly happen? And that might change too. And that's why you kind of rewrite your bhavana, because then things start to happen and you're like, whoa, my bhavana just became realized. Well, now I've got to create a new one, because now I see that maybe it's not this direction I want to go into, it's this direction. So coming back to it every other year or something like that, or once you look at your bhavana and say, oh my gosh, like I already got to all of that. And that's one of the assignments that I have in the teacher training program at OCC. We do that in the very first semester. I'm like, where do you want to be in 5 years? What does this look like? And how are you going to get there? How can you be as clear as possible? Mm-hmm. And once you have that direction, then things just fall into place.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. And when you decide to quit your job at the university and decide to kind of full on pursue yoga therapy, was there a fear or doubt that you felt before quitting? And also, how did your maybe family, friends, colleagues, were they supportive of your decision, or were there any doubts from them?
So I would say that let's see how I can say this in the nicest, most compassionate way, is that Cal State Long Beach has started to become a place that was not the right fit for me. So it was very easy to leave, and also very easy to feel empowered to know that whatever I do, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. I would work at Starbucks if I had to. I've worked at Home Depot. I have worked at Subway. I've danced on bars. I've taught English. I will do anything to make money so that I'm comfortable and safe and all of that. There's no job I won't do. So this was just, instead of going into fear, it was moving into possibility. And when I had that bhavana written out, I was like, all right, my bhavana, I've told myself that I want to work in this and I want to do this and I want to do that. Well, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And never in my whole life has my family ever been critical or doubtful of decisions I've made, except for maybe living in Italy. I think when they were like seeing their 19-year-old daughter kind of leave and not come back, I think that was a little scary for them. Of course, when you're living in a foreign country, you only call home when things are going badly. So they're like, what's happening now? But no one ever said that. They were just like, go for it. If this place isn't a good fit, go for it. But go with the direction that is pulling you. Mm-hmm. And don't look back. Don't spend time in fear. Don't spend time in the what ifs and the what, just step into it. And that is all yoga philosophy. That is practicing tapas to its fullest. And that is definitely something that I try to do every single day. If I am not pushing myself where I am experiencing some type of discomfort that is going to move me in a positive direction, then I am not living my best life as a human being in this yoga tradition. I've got to be practicing the philosophy every single day. So no, there wasn't a fear. There was just, and maybe if there was, you just don't you don't stay in that place for too long, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So you got a full-time job at this integrative clinic.
Yeah.
And what's next for you when you started working there full-time?
So strangely enough, I'll have to back up a tiny bit, where in 2014, the fall of 2014, I was still working at Cal State Long Beach, and I was, almost through. I had finished. I graduated from my yoga therapy program, and I knew I was on my way out of Cal State Long Beach. And I just kind of was thinking, how am I going to do that? What are the steps? And when you work for a university, if you're there for 5 years, you're vested, which means that there's money that gets put into an account for you. And if you leave before that 5 years, that money is gone. So I was like, I have to stay here for another, 6 months or whatever it was. But in the meantime, I was supervising students that were working at the front desk and in marketing. And I happened to say, to my students that I would love to teach yoga at Cal State Long Beach. And someone had said to me that they had taken a class at Cal State Long Beach by a woman named Millie, and they loved it. And she was amazing. And, we were talking about yoga. And then, of course, one day I'm out there, at the front desk watching, our guests come in and out of the recreation facility. And someone, my student that talked to me about yoga, elbows me to the side and goes, "That's Millie." And I said, "Oh, really?" And so she comes in. I didn't see her, but I saw her when she came out. And I said, "Millie, hi, I'm Ashley. I'm just wondering, about teaching yoga at Cal State Long Beach." And she said, "Well, you need a master's for that. You need a master's in something to teach at a college." And I said, "Well, I don't have a master's, but I have my yoga therapy certification." And she's like, "Well, I don't know." But she said, "Who is hiring right now is Orange Coast College. So let me get your name and number, and I'll send, your name to my dean." And I was like, "Okay." And within a week, I had an interview with the dean at Orange Coast College. Now, I had been a student at Orange Coast College from 2000 to 2002. This was in the midst of me going back and forth, living in Italy for years, and then coming back for a few months and all that good stuff. And so when I arrived for this meeting with the dean, I said, "This is where I am meant to be. I was a student here. I love Orange Coast College. I would love to teach yoga here. You are not going to find anyone better than me, more passionate than me." And he said, "Well, do you have your master's?" And I said, "I don't. There isn't at the time a master's of yoga, but there was one in the works at LMU. And there were people that were in the program at the time. And my intention was actually going to get that master's. But I said, look, there isn't anyone currently, but I do have intentions of enrolling to get my master's in yoga at Loyola Marymount University. I said, but I have my certificate in yoga therapy from LMU, and I have the most experience. There's no one that you can hire that has more than me. You have to come into those situations where you have to have passion and enthusiasm, and you have to make a connection somehow. So I got the job immediately. He said, no problem, just fill out some paperwork. And I had to submit something called a certificate of equivalency. So that exists. So if you don't have a master's at the time, or if you don't have a master's at all, but you want to teach in higher education, there is paperwork that you can fill out if you can demonstrate that you have education from another area or experience from another area to be able to teach. So I did that. That was in 2014. And then I started to teach. I was working at Cal State Long Beach. I was teaching a class at Orange Coast College. I was on my way out of Cal State Long Beach, so that when I finally was able to quit in, I think it was March of 2015, I was teaching my second semester at Orange Coast College. I was subbing for the Integrative Health Program Center. And then I was also working in the chiropractor's office and teaching at Core Power. So it was like a lot of different jobs, but it was amazing. I remember walking along the Strand. So I'm from Huntington Beach, and we have this bird sanctuary that you can walk down on. It's called the Bolsa Chica Wetlands. And I remember skipping, just like, I did it. I got out of what wasn't fulfilling me. And now I have all of these opportunities, and I am just I don't know where they're going to lead. I don't know, but I am just so happy to be making a difference in people's lives through yoga.
Yeah. Wow. I love how you showed up at that interview and it's like, I'm the best you got. You have to hire me. I'm meant to be here. I love that. I definitely am going to take that as an advice and use it in the future when some opportunity comes up where it's like, this is meant to be a position for me.
It's so true, Reka. I've been working at UC Irvine for a long time and doing special events. And the students at Orange Coast College, I currently have a colleague there who is so lovely, who just takes the students who are a good fit to teach yoga at UC Irvine through my program. And he's always talking about interview skills. And you have got to be the light in someone's day. You have got to give them all the reasons why you are the best person for the job, that there is no one else that is better than you, even if you have just a little bit of experience. You've got to shine in some way. And I think that that's something that I've noticed throughout, even where I am right now in my professional life. I currently work at a wonderful resort called Rancho La Puerta. And it has been, it's been alive for like 80 years, a long, long time. It's in Tecate, Mexico. I just started working there in 2022. And what I notice is that when you have enthusiasm and you are excited, and when you are present, and when you're looking at the people in front of you and you've got a smile on your face and you're nodding and you're using your body, you make a difference. You make a difference in that person's life. You feel the connection, and I think that's just really the best place to live, in a place of enthusiasm and wonder and awe for who you are and for who you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And I can feel that from you when I'm speaking to you right now, that enthusiasm and the smile and the energy that's like oozing out of you. So I love that.
Thank
And
you.
how did you starting to teach at Orange Coast Community College once a week? How did you decide to create a teacher training program for the college? And how I want to hear about that journey.
Yeah. So my first semester at Orange Coast, I taught one class. My second semester, I taught two classes. And so I was going there about 4 days a week. And then I want to say the year afterwards is where you go to meetings because you're part of the faculty, and one of the discussions or points of one of the meetings was we need to create some certificate programs. So there are many different types of students that come to a community college. Some of them want to matriculate, which means that they are taking certain classes so that they can move on to get their bachelor's and go somewhere else, right? So they take these fundamental classes for whatever reason. It might be because they didn't get good grades in school, and so they need to kind of start all over, or they couldn't afford going straight into a university and needed a more affordable way. Or there are people out there that don't necessarily want to go to a university, but want to attain a certain skill. So we have many certificate programs at Orange Coast College, like cooking and radio techs and sleep people that, facilitate sleep studies and all that stuff. I have to look up what that word is. And so there's I don't know how many we have, 80 to 100 of them. And so I said, what about a yoga certificate program? Because when I worked at Orange Coast College, I had told my dean that I was going to get my master's in yoga. Not that he ever said anything to me, Reka. He never said, hey, Ashley, when are you going to start that, that program? He never did. But that seemed to me like the next step, because all of my colleagues have masters and PhDs. So I wanted to continue with my education. And I knew that LMU offered a yoga studies master's program. And I loved LMU and I loved that community. So I applied, got in, and I started in that program the fall of 2015. And when I was going through the program, I was like, what are we supposed to get out of this? What is the purpose of having a yoga studies degree? What does the dean of the program, Christopher Chappell, what does he want us to do? And some of my folks in my cohort are going on to get PhDs, and they're going to get PhDs in Sanskrit and ancient yogic traditions and all of that. And at that time I was thinking, I've been in school for so long. We're going lots and lots of school and training. And then I had heard him say one day, where we want to make yoga affordable. And one of the ways to do that is by creating a yoga teacher training program and putting it in an academic environment in a college. And I said, okay, then that's what I'm going to do. So I did that for my thesis. I worked on it as part of my thesis at LMU. And I basically, that in those 2 years of being in that program, every paper that I wrote, every research that I did, all went into creating a manual. And then for my thesis, I did a presentation on it, and I had presented it also to my dean and the college. And at the time that I presented my thesis was also, I think within a couple of days, I found out that the certificate program was approved. And so we were able to, in the fall of 2017, have our first cohort at OCC.
Wow, everything seems like it was all lining up the timing wise, but also, again, you created this opportunity. You were asking, you were talking to the right people, you were creating almost the manuals as you were going through your yoga studies program. That sounds amazing. So you kind of had the vision from the beginning that you knew where the vision was taking you towards.
Yeah, I did. And again, I have to thank Robert Bernberg for teaching me about bhavana, because if I don't have that structure, then nothing's going to get done. But if you have a goal, if you have an intention in mind, this is why I'm doing this to get here, then everything falls into place.
Yeah. And was it, how were you able to balance during the yoga studies program, the master's program at LMU? How were you able to balance all the teaching jobs you had and also going to school and studying and exams? Or was that a challenge, busy time for you?
I would say that also in my master's program, I at that point was feeling like, oh my gosh, there's so much. I mean, there was like, I don't know, like 10 books to read, I mean, it was just like an incredible amount of papers. I had to learn Sanskrit. We were reading the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. I was starting to feel overwhelmed because I wanted to do a good job. Obviously, I want to excel. I was teaching at Orange Coast College. I was working in the clinic. I was teaching at Core Power Yoga. I was teaching at UC Irvine. I'm all over the place. And then even the dean of the program said, Ashley, it's not about, reading and getting every single concept perfectly in your mind. It's about reading, kind of like skimming through things more so. But then when something is really interesting to you, that's what you want to pay attention to. That's what you want to make a note of that and be like, oh, wow, I really, really, that speaks to me. And for some reason, if you try to get everything to feel like that, you're just going to get stuck. It's like when you read something and you're like, what did I just read? And then you'll go back and you'll be like, what did I just read? He's like, don't get stuck on that. Just say, I didn't get that, and just keep moving. But then you're going to be like, whoa, what was that? This is amazing. Oh, this is really incredible. And that's where you want to put your energy. And that's what I did. So I was like, okay, this, not really interested in that, but this I really like. So that's kind of how I have continued to live my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now that you are, teaching this teacher training program that is part of the college and that students can get certificate for, but also get college credit for. And I love that, like you said, this program makes teacher training and yoga, the knowledge of yoga, accessible to so many people who otherwise wouldn't be able to pay $3,000, $4,000 teacher training at a yoga studio. I love that you're making this accessible to so many different people. So besides teaching yoga, teacher training at not LMU, but OCC, what are other streams of income or other teaching jobs that you have currently? And maybe what does your typical week look like now?
So the challenge with being a part-time instructor at a college is that you are not allowed to teach more than 10 lecture hour equivalent sessions, which basically means that you can only teach a certain amount of classes that have a certain amount of hours. So if you cannot survive as a part-time instructor working at one college, you just can't, especially living in Southern California. So when I had worked at the clinic up until 2020, and that was my other big source of income. So, back before 2020, I mean, for years, I was making, like take home $8,000 a month, easily. But then when the clinic shut down, half my money was gone. And so that was really scary. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to move in a different direction? And that's when I started to reach out to some corporations. I got into working with a corporation that paid me to create yoga videos. And again, it's just, knocking on doors. It's finding out who the human resources representative is. It's asking for a meeting. It's to go in and say, your students need, or your constituents need this. They need the yoga. They are at home. This is during COVID. They need to be able to breathe. We need to get our mental health right. So that really helped me during COVID. I worked a little bit with UC Irvine too, doing stuff online with that. But then once the world kind of came back into its own, I started to lose some of the online streams of income because people wanted in person. So I started to Bhavanize a little bit more. And I thought, well, I teach at Orange Coast College at night. All I need is another college position where I teach in the morning. But there's another catch to that, because when you teach at a community college, you are only allowed to teach those 10 lecture hours in a district. So for instance, I live in Huntington Beach, and this is the Coast Community College District. And that is Orange Coast College, Coast Community College, and Golden West College. They are close to my home, within 20 minutes away, but I can't work at any of those other colleges because I've already maxed out in my 10 lecture hours. So I have to either go to like Long Beach area, or I've got to go to South Orange County. And so I said, this has got to happen. I've got to figure this out somehow. I kept looking at different, job postings, like Indeed was huge. I even still get Indeed job postings even to this day. I'm so interested about it. And I saw when I was in Mexico working at this resort that I was able to connect with during kind of like the COVID, aftermath. I saw that Saddleback College was hiring for health and wellness instructors to teach their active aging population. So these are folks that are anywhere between 55 and 95 years old. And they were looking for yoga teachers to not just come in to teach a yoga class, but to talk about health and wellness. So you can talk about osteoporosis. You could talk about the benefits of nostril breathing. You can talk about cardiovascular endurance and why that's important and all of that. So it's half lecture and half exercise class. So I saw that and I was like, okay, this is amazing. Like, this is perfect. But I wasn't practicing this intense like fear that I wasn't going to get it. I didn't even tell my husband that I was applying for this job. And it's funny because he ended up getting a full-time position at Saddleback College. So I didn't even tell him that this was through Saddleback College either. I was in Mexico by myself for 9 weeks over the summer. And I sent in the application and just put it out there. And within 2 days, I had an interview. It was a very long interview, a lot about equity and diversity. And, it was pretty incredible, about 2.5 hours. And then I got the job. So now I teach 4 classes with the Saddleback Emeritus program, and I've maxed out on those hours as a part-time faculty. So I teach about 10 hours during the week, during the morning, to folks that are, in their older years, mostly the retirement community. And then I teach at Orange Coast College in the evening. And then I have privates, or I have some corporate gigs where I come to their campus and teach. But mostly I work Monday mornings, Monday evenings, Tuesday mornings, Tuesday evenings, Wednesday mornings, Wednesday evenings, and Thursday mornings. And I'm off all Thursday afternoons, all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Wow. Oh, it's so amazing that you are, keep finding and going for it, these opportunities in higher education realm, and it's so nice to hear that there are different types of opportunities out there for yoga teachers. It's not all about working at studios or private clients, but I feel like yoga is becoming more known and well accepted, especially maybe in California. I don't know, but that different places are looking for these kind of teachers with expert in it, like a college or clinic or community wellness center. so many different places. So I love that you shared different kind of opportunities that you were able to tap into, because they're different. And I think listeners will actually appreciate hearing that it's not just about applying for studios and gyms.
It's true. And that yoga therapy certification, that training has really been foundational, fundamental, profound, because that has allowed me to step into these different markets. Because, teaching vinyasa, flow, power yoga, there's a place for it. I'm currently in talks with teaching at different high schools in the community so that they can get a dual enrollment for Orange Coast College. So whether I will, or maybe Stephanie Serrano will be able to go in and teach in local high schools our yoga program so that they can get college credit. But when you think about our population and that people are growing older, right? They are living longer. I mean, I cannot tell you, Reka, that, I teach people who are 95 years old. I'm teaching yoga. It's incredible. These populations are huge and we're only getting older. So that's why I really want to encourage everyone that's listening, get into therapeutic modules of different trainings, certificates, whatever it is, because you're going to have to learn how to teach people where there are injuries, where there are, you can't just be teaching chaturanga, up dog and down dog, and all these peak postures that are really challenging to do. You want to teach yoga with the big why, so that it is gentle movement, it is breath infused, that you're teaching certain breathing techniques, you're teaching visualization, meditation, mantras, mudras, yoga philosophy, right? All of that for this population that is anywhere between 55 and 95. That is just gold for them. You're not going to have a ton of opportunities if you stop at your 200 hour. That's really the honest truth. You're going to get paid more, and you're going to have a huge population that is untapped if you don't get into more training, especially therapeutic.
I love hearing that. Definitely. The common thread of me interviewing so many amazing teachers is that continuing education, how important it is for us to keep learning, and how 200 hours is just opening the door. And then there's just so much more out there for you to be able to keep learning and just to never stop learning. I think that it's definitely a common thread of what everybody have shared so far. Well, to wrap up, I have just a couple more questions for you. Can you tell the listener what is something you love the most about being a full-time yoga teacher, and maybe what is most challenging?
Oh gosh, what I love the most about it is that every day I really feel like I'm connecting to someone as a conduit for this ancient technology that is yoga. And you never know who's going to step into this space. And, I teach yoga in gymnasiums. I teach yoga in studios and colleges and, specific little training rooms, but you never know who's going to be there, and you never know what they need. And if you just stay true to what yoga means, and it is about helping people and providing these tools and techniques to improve the quality of our life. So offer as many as you can, because you never know what's going to fit at that time. And so what I love so much about being a full-time instructor is that every day I make an impact in some way through the power of yoga, and I see it in their eyes, and I can feel the connection from my heart to theirs. And that is everything. That is everything. And what was the other part of that?
What is the most challenging part?
The most challenging is that, unlike the jobs that I had at UCI and Cal State Long Beach, where you're going to have a paycheck, that you can call in sick anytime you want, right? I mean, Reika, you can have a Sunday night party, go to Vegas, whatever it is, and you can call in sick on Monday and you don't have to care. That doesn't exist when you are a yoga teacher as an independent contractor or even as a part-time or adjunct faculty, working at Saddleback or Orange Coast College. You cannot miss. You cannot. And so do I wish sometimes that I could just call in sick one day? There's been plenty of times when I feel like things in my life, I have some challenges, something that was unexpected where I do feel overwhelmed, that I wish that I could just be like, I need a week off. I just need a week just to like reconnect, be with my family a little bit more, but you can't do that. So you really, really, really have to stick to a routine. That routine is so important. When you wake up, how much exercise you do, what you eat. So a lot of it is keeping yourself in balance. And that's not necessarily fun. An easy way to live. It's not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding. And you are just you're going to feel better more than not, right? When you have that sustainable energy and lifestyle. So every so often I'm like, oh gosh, it'd be just so great to be in a job where I don't have to care about anything. But then I'm like, but how long would that last? How long would that last? That might last a week before I go, please, I just want to go back to yoga, please.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I don't work in a college settings, but even, just teaching for my own and being independent contractor, if I have to take some time off because I'm sick or if I'm traveling or a family emergency, you have to either look for coverage right away or, you just are not going to get paid if you are missing. So if you go off to travel for a week, if you had a full-time job with benefit, you can use your vacation hours and still make the same salary. But as an independent contractor or yoga teacher, you're like, okay, that means I'm just going to make less this month. So there's the whole thing of not having health insurance or 401k, all of that when you're a yoga teacher. I know some teachers are able to work at places with those kind of benefits, but it's a little bit more rare in yoga world.
It's true. And I think that probably is a really good idea for another guest for you for a podcast. But, you really do need to invest in your future. And you can find the jobs, and especially if you continue to get more education and certificates and degrees, that you will be able to make it and have an abundant life. But no matter how much you get paid, please, please, please invest in your future, in your own retirement. Like, talk to somebody who is a financial advisor. And it doesn't matter if you make, $20,000 a year. You take whatever money you can, and you can talk to a professional about this, so that you are in it for the long run. I mean, I am in it to be alive until I'm 100 years old. That's a long time. So start to invest in your future, because you're right, Reika, we don't have maybe as easy it is for other people that are working maybe unfulfilling 40-hour-a-week jobs.
Definitely. Beautifully said. That's definitely, I think, such a great advice that I think other teacher I've interviewed haven't brought it up, but it's so important to have some kind of savings or investments or something for the future. So there's at least some kind of safety net for you as you keep moving forward in this path as a yoga teacher. So the last question I have for you is, what does success mean to you?
Success means that I am looking at my bhavana and seeing that I am achieving what I set out to achieve. Is that I have had a plan and it is being realized. And then I look at it, and when it's not pushing me and expanding me and helping me grow, then I rewrite it for some new goals. And then I'll come back to it and see if I'm on track. So success to me is equivalent to my bhavana.
And what is your bhavana right now?
That is such a great question. And I think I need to revisit it because I was just telling the chair of the department at the Saddleback Emeritus program, and I said, I am so grateful that I got hired because I feel like this is where I want to be. This is exactly what I wanted. A little bit of teaching in the morning, a little bit of teaching in the evening. I have summers off so I can work anywhere. And currently I work at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico. And I've got 6 weeks off for the winter vacation. I mean, I really don't know where it's going to go, but I would probably have to say that I want to get back into more retreats. And currently I have a retreat that we have 8 people confirmed already going to Panama. And that's in January of 2025 from January 4th to the 11th. And we've got just a few spots left. We can hold 12, but we've got already 8 confirmed, and it's really exciting. So I think that, if I want to think about where I could go and my new bhavana, maybe it's more retreats, spending more time in nature and facilitating more sangha, getting with just a small group of people and talking about yoga philosophy and what we can do with this ancient lineage that really affects our entire life.
Your retreat sounds really amazing. And I'll definitely put a link to that on the show notes. So tell the listener, how can they reach out to you if they want to ask you a question, or maybe they have questions about your teacher training program at the Orange Coast Community College or anything else? How can they reach out to you?
Yes. Well, you can email me at ashmckeachie@hotmail.com or Ashley at ashleymckeachieyoga.com. You can find me on Instagram, Ashley McKeachie Yoga, or Facebook. And it's McKeachie as MC. So M as in Mary, C, Keachie. And happy to schedule a Zoom or a phone call. Pretty much, I think every student I've ever had at the Orange Coast College training, I've always wanted to have a conversation with them. And so happy to talk. I've got plenty of time to do that since I have situated my life in a very the perfect balanced way where I do have a lot of time to spend with those that want to talk about yoga as much as I do.
Yeah, I'll definitely link all of that on the show notes. Thank you so much, Ashley. That was such an inspiring conversation, and I hope the listeners also found it very inspiring. I love how you really created so many opportunities for yourself. You did all the hard work, like you said, tapas, right? Like you are doing all the hard work, going to keep pursuing the continuing education in higher level, not only yoga therapy level 4, but you went on to do your master's in yoga studies. And I just also love how you really knocked on doors, presented some ideas or projects or collaboration, and really believing in your work that you do and how much of an impact you can make with the amazing work that you offer. So thank you. I think I am super inspired by this talk, and I'm sure the listeners will be too.
Thank you, Reika. This is so wonderful being with you. I feel like I can talk to you for hours and hours, but I know we've got so many things that we still have to accomplish. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Ashley. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I was inspired from this interview I had with Ashley and the power of bhavana that she talked about, and just power of dreaming what we want, knowing our goals, and writing it down and just really moving towards it. It sounds very simple, but I think it's so powerful. So thank you, Ashley, so much for reminding us of that, as well as sharing your journey and your expertise. As I wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you about my virtual mentorship program. That registration or the application will close at the end of April. So if you are interested, you're on the fence about it, feel free to reach out to me, or you can just fill out an application and I can reach out to you. I would love to have you join the program. So any questions, you are always welcome to reach out to me. It is kind of surreal to think that next time, when the next episode come out, I will be living in Peru. So I look forward to continuing to share my journey on my podcast. And if you have any questions or any feedback about my podcast or episodes so far, you are always welcome to reach out to me, message me, don't hesitate. You can find me on Instagram at Reika Yoga or on my website, www.reikayoga.com. I will speak to you all next week. Have a good day.